Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 139. Feeling fine, Frank Cowley. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. This is the only thing that rushes my head. Last week, I had to deal with flat tires on my bicycle. I fixed my bicycle. Now I can ride it fine, and it's easier to ride than ever because the last, 2 weeks I probably had a bad tire. So I'm happy, and I legitimately want to ride my bike after this is over. So I'm excited.
Damn, wait, did you have a slow puncture for 2 weeks?
Yeah,
what was going on?
I didn't know. I was talking to Jeremy about this like a week ago. This is my first time dealing with it. Like a week ago, I was going to ride my bicycle, and then there was a flat tire, so I had to go to Target, buy a pump, pumped it back up. I thought it was fine, started riding my bike. Halfway through the ride, it was flat again, so I had to walk like 5 miles back home and push my bike. I'm so dumb. I pumped it back up again. I was like, okay, this seems like it's fine.
Problem solved.
Rode again, same thing happened. I was like, okay. So, I'm very stubborn, and so, yeah.
I'm just impressed that you managed to cycle a bike for presumably a long period of time without ever pumping the wheels up.
Right? I didn't know. So I learned something every week. So that was like, yeah.
Is it like a mountain bike or is it a road bike?
It's a hybrid. It's called a gravel bike, but it's like, yeah, it can do road and mountains well.
All terrain.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess a hybrid.
Yeah. A nice one. Did you get the tube replaced?
That's what it was, yeah. And so I know it's like changing guitar strings. I know I could probably learn how to do it myself, but I went to.
It is annoying. It is annoying.
I went to, if you're in Southern California, I went to Pure Ride Cycle in Mission Viejo. Like incredible customer service. They're very friendly. So I got it. I had someone else take care of it. It was great. And
nice.
And then yesterday it was
Thanks,
easier.
Pure Ride.
Yeah.
Use offer code Noclip.
Noclip, yeah.
Pure Ride Cycles.
15% off.
Diegetic ads here.
Yeah.
Built into the podcast. Jeremy Jane, have you ever had a puncture? Have you ever successfully repaired a broken tube?
Yes, 1,000 times. And Frank, it is the guitar strings thing is the perfect analogy because it's one of those things where you need a specific tool to do it. And even if you've done it 1,000 times, every time I start, I'm like, I don't know if I know how to do this. But yeah, I used to ride my bike in Boston down Comm Ave to college. I lived like 2 miles from Boston University where I went to film school. And the streets are just littered with broken glass. I lived in like a student ghetto.
Wow.
And so every weekend you would just hear people getting drunk and smashing bottles in the streets. So I probably went through about 50 to 60 tubes.
Oh my God.
In my college career.
That's wild.
So I'm an old hand at it.
Yeah, not even like actual proper cuts as well. That's killer. I always liken this to trying to put a Band-Aid on in the shower.
Oh.
It's just like when you're doing whether it's the glue or the patches or whatever it is, I'm like, that's not going to hold. Like I have no confidence that that's going to get me home. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and if you're trying to just change the tube on a road bike, they're so thin but you need to apply so much force to get it in there that it's like
fingers are like fucking.
Yeah,
that last bit. It's like when you're like trying to put the lid on the big gulp and it won't like the last
it won't snap on
the corner.
Yeah, it's the worst.
Man, oh man. Well, Frank Howley's summer of cycling continues. Look at this. Your arm is feeling better. Show us. Can you do some calisthenics for the YouTube audience?
Yeah.
Can you show us some full range of motion here?
I can finally lift a kettlebell again. Like,
oh my God,
look at him go.
That. Oh, look at that. He's
going to be
look,
cut.
He's doing one-handed.
Oh my God.
One-handed for our friends over in Audio Land. Frank Howley is pumping iron like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Does it feel like you're coming every time you do that?
Yeah, very much so.
Welcome, like I said, to the Noclip podcast, episode 139. Of course, this is all supported by the wonderful people over at patreon.com/Noclip and our amazing Battle Pass holders, Battle Royale games, Arno, Richard Matherson, James Brown, Jason Drury, Mark Rojas, Ryan Cobb, Cody Krieger, Tucker Morgan, Crimson Cyclist, Sven Huster. Crimson Cyclist probably replaced a tube or two. Sven Huster, Carson, Tim Robinson, Forrest Pruitt, Andy Fegan, Darren Birmingham, Eric Hamilton Schneider. A bit of a pause there for Eric. Eric Hamilton Schneider. Cameron Lad. Alex Sharp. I feel like Alex Sharp always gets the sort of wrong end of the stick because the Cameron lad, he's like the January 1st of this affair. You know what I mean? Like everyone's like tired after
you're hungover from Cameron Ladd.
Just a great night of Cameron ladding.
Yeah.
And then Alex Sharp is like on the cool end of that. So Alex Sharp though is in good company with his brother in names, Alex Goucher, George Sakotis, Jacob Godserve, Silvintro. It's actually in all caps, so maybe it should be Silvintro. James Andrew Adams, Tohir Tiliev, Ryson. I love our Battle Pass holders and all of our patrons because it's kind of like Formula One drivers. It's just names from all over the world that you'd never normally hear if you were like at a high school elementary or something when they're reading out the roll. Or what did you guys call it when they read out the names?
Like attendance.
Attendance?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What
Sounds
did you
like
say?
roll.
What did you say when they...
Here,
Yeah.
present, something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We said anseo, which is
Anseo.
here in Irish.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. And they read your name out in Irish too. So I was Donal O'Dwyer.
I think
Yeah.
I jokingly at GameSpot to you one time called you Danny O'Dwyer, and you were like, how did you know my last name in Irish?
Wow, yeah. Good memory there. Tim Robinson-like memory. I've been watching that Boku no Yatsumasime. How do you say it again?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Tim Rogers
Yeah.
video on
Yeah,
Boku
Tim
no
Rogers, yeah.
Natsuyasumi? Yeah.
Tim Rogers, sorry, not
Yeah.
Tim Robinson.
No, it's all right. I love that's probably my current favorite YouTube video on the entirety of YouTube.
It's amazing. He's currently visiting his school, his childhood school in
I
Kansas.
love that part.
Yeah, his video essays are absolutely insane. And that video game, I know we talked about it. I feel like last year when that video came out, you guys were talking about it.
Yeah.
I've had a blast watching that one. Why did that come up? Oh yeah, my favorite one was Kevin McSweeney was right beside me, and his name in Irish was Quiveen McSwivna, which is like some sort of Star Trek shit. Anyway, we're not here to talk about weird Irish names. We're here to talk about... Actually, we might end up talking about weird Irish names in a second, because we're here to talk about video games, and I think the most prescient video game we can talk about right now is the third Baldur's Gate, appropriately titled Baldur's Gate 3. Myself and Jeremy have played it. It sounds like we have both played it, but not much of it.
Yeah.
So we probably can't come to many broad conclusions about the quality therein. But Jeremy, how have you enjoyed your initial steps into the world of Baldur's Gate, into Kevin Van Ord's beautiful Larian Studios' incredible 21st century? I'm assuming Baldur's Gate 2 came out before the 9/11. I'm not sure. Anyway, what do you think of Baldur's Gate 3, Jeremy Jane?
Well, on that note, segueing from 9/11 to Baldur's Gate 3. Yeah, also, I think they should have called it Kevin Van Ord's Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah,
I think that would have been a really good title.
Save. Oh, fuck,
yeah.
It came out in 2002, did bollocks.
Same
Before
year.
9/11, though.
Coincidence? I think not.
Fucking judging by the start of this game, fucking a 9/11 happened to Baldur's Gate at the start of this game.
True, absolutely true. Yeah, I absolutely love it so far. So I am currently for keen watchers of the YouTube audience.
Quinoa.
For quinoa watchers of the video audience, I am not in my normal office, and that's because I'm at a house sitting with my partner way up in the forest-lined Mendocino. And so
beautiful.
I had to play a little Baldur's Gate 3 before I left for this trip because I'm in a Discord group with my friends who are all playing Baldur's Gate 3. And I have begged them to not send me screenshots, and yet they persist to send me screenshots because, I mean, who am I to put a lid on their enthusiasm for what is probably the greatest game of the 2020s? If I'm after 3 hours, I feel confident that it is the greatest game.
It's pretty fucking good, Jeremy J.
It's really good.
my God.
I mean, Divinity Original Sin 2 is one of my favorite games of all time. In fact, I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but when I played Divinity Original Sin 2, I did not have a gaming PC because my gaming PC is my Noclip edit PC.
You did. You mentioned you streamed it.
Yeah,
You
and I
mentioned
streamed
this
it
only
on
a few weeks ago.
on GeForce Now for 150 hours. Streamed it. So like my commitment to Larian's vision it runs deep within my soul. Baldur's Gate 3 is unbelievable. I mean, it is so similar to Divinity Original Sin 2 in all of the ways that it needs to be. But the world building of I mean, I haven't played all of Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. I've dabbled with them a little bit. I've played all of Dark Alliance. So I'm not a super hardcore Baldur's Gate fan. But the world building in the Baldur's Gates games are like, I don't know. There's just Divinity Original Sin is this kind of like, it has darkness to it, but it's this sort of classic fantasy of like, it almost reminds me, there's no unicorns in it, I don't think, but it reminds me of that type of fantasy, like
Right.
almost a Lisa Frank version of like Lord of the Ringsy fantasy. Baldur's Gate is more like tentacles and scorn looking like terminals with tubes coming out of them and shit. And yeah, it's just like it just for my money, that's what I want out of fantasy. Is I want to be immersed and I want to be like on a mystical journey, but I want it to be frightening and alien and cold and just like mysterious. I want to when a mysterious adventure needs to feel mysterious. You know what I mean?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to ask you actually about it, because you've played Divinity Original Sin 2 and I have not. I have not played divine divinity original sin. I am divinityless in the world. The way in which like the camera and mouse stuff operates, I always had in my head that Divinity was way more isometric. Is it? Or is it like this where you can like really get in there? Because like if you plug a controller into this game, it just it's the Witcher. Like the camera goes right behind the car. Like they swap the game. Like changes. It goes, oh, you running with a controller? Cool. Camera's going to go right behind the character now, and you've got hotkeys on your shoulder buttons. I was like, that's incredible.
Oh, really? Does it control like that too with a joystick?
You literally character control and camera control like you were Geralt in The Witcher. Yeah.
No way. I did not know that.
Crazy. I saw someone post a video on Twitter, and I was like, no fucking way. And I just plugged in the controller, and suddenly I was like just running around.
That's unbelievable. It's also, it speaks to like, if you just build good systems and a good world and good writing and all of these things, that the change in perspective is almost like what feels like a totally different genre of video game is almost just kind of a trivial change of perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I picture a world in which Witcher 3 has a mod where it controls like a classic CRPG, and it would probably be a really good video game.
But is Divinity isometric sort of more locked?
It's if I haven't played it since, probably like 5 or 6 years.
Right.
If I recall, it's pretty much similar. I'm pretty sure you can zoom in, rotate the camera, and everything. Yeah.
Lots of stuff. Is the level of detail a bit more in this, or?
Divinity Original Sin 2 is very detailed. It's pretty similar.
Maybe this is just like an extension of my CRPG sort of like Second Coming or First Coming, Rebirth as a CRPG evangelist. That I never got around to Divinity or anything. The thing that blows me away about this, and like, we talked about it a little bit a couple of weeks ago when I was talking about my CRPG stuff, where like, I don't know, a lot of these games are menu heavy and a little bit, I'm not sure if it's jank, but they're a little bit like wordy. You have to read a lot, and there's like, you have to like concentrate, and I don't know what it is, but like there's an element of like a lot of action games, like when you play Call of Duty as a first person shooter, the way in which like things appear and communicate to you on the screen is very like I don't know, punchy and direct, and it's just flowless and everything works really well. And I remember like when World of Warcraft came out, that was a game that got me into fantasy stuff because they did such a good job of kind of like I don't know, not simplifying or dumbing down all of the stats and stuff, because WoW is quite a stat heavy game, and like, all the systems heavy game and all that sort of stuff, but it presented it in such an incredibly like well produced way. Like it was thoughtful in like where information was located, so you weren't constantly bombarded with menus, but then also like just the sound design and the animations and the pops and the like, when you the level up ding and the punchiness of it, like it almost has like a pachinko or like a mobile game feel to it. And Baldur's Gate 3 is like, it feels like the quality of the game feels like World of Warcraft, and feels like, I don't know, like the way in which the camera moves and all that sort of stuff feels like the best moments of like a Mass Effect 2 or something like that. Like if in a way it's, we like complain, or like we gamers writ large have been complaining about games coming out of certain studios that just don't feel like they're polished or finished or anything. And for the longest time, I think I was a little bit, empathetic towards those studios, because I'm like, making games is hard and these systems are hard and 4K and all this sort of stuff. And then Larian comes around, and this game is just like fucking perfect. Like it just runs perfect. Everything looks great. Like all the like systems, and it's just effortless, and it seems to work amazing. And I'm just like, fuck, like all games, why aren't all games this good? Like I've never played a Baldur's Gate game. I do not do D&D stuff. And I am like completely besotted with this game. I've only played like maybe 3 or 4 hours, but like I'm like, oh no, I'm going through this. This isn't like me dipping my toe into into some of these other games I've been playing for the past couple of weeks, like Pillars of Eternity 2, or games where I'm not quite sure if I'll see them through, although I do want to play more of that. This is like, oh no, I'm like addicted like WoW now. This is so good.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a term in specifically, I've seen it a lot in like dev videos about indie game dev. People talk about like juice, which is adding things like screen shake and audio feedback and like haptic feedback. All these things that kind of, it doesn't change the actions that you're doing in the game, but it changes the way that they feel. And I feel like the sounds and the like visual effects and the visual feedback and like all of the things outside of the gameplay in this game are so good that it invites you to like keep investigating these really deep systems, because it is really complex. Like, how long did you spend on the character creation screen?
Oh my god! First of all, this is like just making like the most fuckable characters in the world.
Oh
like,
yeah,
all of them are just gorgeous. I mean, even the ugly ones are just like, yeah, I could get into that though.
yeah, and you can select penis A through E, of course.
Oh yeah. There's only 2 vulvas though, but there's like
I know.
there's like 6 dicks. I guess you got circumcised, you got uncircumcised. Yeah, you're also like can be super fluid with like voices, genders, body types, all that sort of stuff. Obviously, then there's like dragon people and lizard people, and 2 different types of small person and 2 different types of elf and all this sort of stuff. Who did you make? What was your... I spent forever on that thing. It was so much fun. The music was beautiful as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, the music is so good. Yeah, that goes to my point about like Juice, is just that even though this game is so complex, it's constantly inviting your attention to draw back to it. So even when I'm staring at a huge thing and it's like, oh, I have to read all of these spells and see what they do and decide if this is for me, in the background is like a beautiful woman's voice singing like Celtic melodies.
By the river.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh man, I just want to be down by the river, like casting spells. My character is a non-binary half-orc cleric.
Nice.
Yeah, named Jair, which is Jayre, but it's the way that you say my Jair, which is what everyone calls me.
Jair, love
Jair.
it.
Yeah, but it's Jayre because it has to be fantasy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Needs a Y in there.
See, I have an easy out. I just pick Irish names.
Yeah.
I just go straight for I used to have like Freyak or something in World of Warcraft. It was just like Rage. This one I picked she's a lady wood elf. A half elf, but her half elf is from the wood people, and her name is Dwillogue, which Irish listeners will know is the Irish for leaf, which seemed thematically appropriate. And then you also make like a second weird character who I guess turns up at some stage.
Yeah,
like
I have not gotten to that person yet. So I'm curious how they'll tie in. There was one cinematic thing that I thought might be alluding to them, but I wasn't sure. Because I'm still really early on in this game. Also, I won't spoil any story details or anything, but it is very funny structurally how much the intro is like Divinity Original Sin 2.
Oh, is it really? Okay.
It's very, very similar. It's kind of like a bizarro version of it. Like I felt like I was playing like an homage to Divinity Original Sin 2. But yeah,
Mind Flayers in Divinity Original Sin 2.
No, but there was a ship, a whole thing about a ship.
Oh,
in the
really?
intro.
Okay.
Yeah. The whole intro was on a ship.
Cutscenes are also like WoW level. Like
it's unbelievable. The writing too is like I have dabbled in Diablo 4. I have not played it myself, but I've been watching a lot of friends stream it, and I've been watching videos of it just because like I'm a huge fan of CRPGs and action RPGs. Diablo 1 and 2 are 2 of my favorite games ever. So I was very curious about what Diablo 4 is like, and it's funny comparing Diablo 4 to Baldur's Gate 3 just from purely just like looking at them and comparing them, because Diablo 4 is incredibly polished, and the voice, the performances, the voice acting is really good. It looks unbelievable, but the level of writing in Larian games is just on another level. Like the emotional pathos in me just like shoots up when I hear these characters talk. They just feel like real people. I'm trying to think of an example. I don't want to talk too much about any specifics, even though it's early in the game, but there was one character I met who initially, when I was talking to them, was kind of very jokey and like poking fun. And then I spoke to them later, like maybe an hour later at camp with my party, and they were very kind of like serious and dour and feeling very bummed out about the state of things. And it's really interesting because I feel like that's such good character writing to have like to have them contain multitudes. It's easy to lean on an archetype of a character and be like, he's like the comedic character, he's like the guy who's always cracking jokes. But real people aren't like that. Real people are like, sometimes they're in a bad mood, sometimes they're joking around, sometimes they're just like feeling prickly that day. And yeah, I don't know. There's just a real level of depth. It doesn't feel like the game is trying to make you like these characters implicitly. It's trying to like invite you to be curious about them as like complex beings, not just kind of like token symbols of archetypes or whatever.
Yeah, it's there's so much like you said, like every little element of the game. I feel like I could spend 5 minutes explaining or talking about why I think they do it better than other things. Like even the character creation stuff was effortless. It was so much fun to be in that world. It also wasn't like overly crazy with some of the personalization stuff. Like it had such a great fine balance of, I'm going to mess around with this, and the way they communicated. Because when you look like a D&D character sheet, and you've got the the D&D book there, and you're looking at like, okay, tieflings, they get like, two spells and one cantrip or any of this sort of stuff. But the way that they do it in this, where the menu sort of is linear, and when you choose your class, it like shifts the menus around and lets you, it's so like, you can just tell this thing was designed within an inch of its life. Like, I think we could do, if we were to do a documentary on this, you could do a whole documentary about a whole video about the character creator. You could do a 20-minute video about how the fucking dice rolls work in this game.
Yeah.
Like, talk about, what did you say? The juice?
Juice, yeah. The sounds and like it's crunchy, and it's more trebly.
You're right. Yeah, the sound design is unbelievable. And like the D20 when you roll it and all the like stuff comes up. It's like they got a bunch of people who work on pachinko machines or like match 3 games or something. And so they just squeezed all the juice on. It's so satisfying. And when you get that, like, it like lands and then it tells you like, oh, you got like 8 and then there's your +3 here, which goes onto it, and that's the roll you were trying to beat, and then success comes up like boom. It's like, oh man, it's so good.
I know. I feel like I'm winning a slot machine bonus every time I get that roll. It is a good point though. Like, because like you said, the games like this, it's kind of the industry standard going back, that these are menu heavy games, they're text heavy games, they're systems heavy games, and they have to be, because they're essentially not imitating Dungeons and Dragons, but taking a lot of those conventions from tabletop and trying to transpose them into a CRG format. And so inherently they're going to be very data heavy, because if you want to create a game where a player can do a wide range of options, you need to give the player a wide range of options. And to do so, I mean, the combat in this, if you look at the bottom, the skill bar, there's way more stuff than Divinity Original Sin 2, because they're like, here's all your spells, here's all your attacks and stuff, but there's also like push, trip, like whatever, all those little things, the physical actions.
Jump.
Yeah, like, exactly.
Rush,
And I think it would have been very, very easy to do that in a less streamlined, efficient way, and have a game where anyone who isn't super steeped in these type of games is immediately like, their brain just turns off. They're like, why? I don't want to learn all this. This is my first combat ever, and I have 1,000 options I can do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which I am, and my eyes glaze over. Like I have. And I think like a lot of like me talking about this stuff over the past couple of weeks is me maybe being in a place where I am able to do this now. Maybe I didn't have the patience for it 10, 15 years ago. Just on that, a couple of other things I want to sort of like dive into. And sorry, Frank, I know you're sort of like this. It's hard for you to jump in here. I'll ask you about your experience, or if you have any questions in a second. But the combat in this game. So I was playing Jagged Alliance 3 a couple of weeks ago, and I've been continuing to play that, and I've been really, really enjoying it. And one of the things that I enjoyed about it was there was ways of like splitting your group apart and having some of them engage in a combat, and then having other ones like sort of prepare yourself, like prepare where they go and all this sort of stuff beforehand. The combat system in Baldur's Gate 3 is, I don't think, and I'm trying, this is like, again, if this may be ignorance on my part, having not played a lot of games like this, or Divinity Original Sin 2, or any of the modern incarnations of this sort of stuff, but it is so like freeform and dynamic and malleable in a way that like my head with these games is often based on the chessboard of like, this is the grid, this is how much I can move. I'm thinking about XCOM, right? I'm thinking about Jagged Alliance as well to a certain extent. A lot of these games where it's more about, especially when it's turn-based, it's not, it's about where are the angles, where are the line of sight, and it's all very gridded and the rules are there. But because of all the different like combat systems, and because of, I don't know, the way in which the grid works, there is no grid, and it's just so freeform, and to the point where like I was, I saw some baddies there, and I went into stealth mode, and you can kind of see their influence cones, and then 2 of my crew engaged in the fight, and then the other 2 were just like walking around. Like while the fight was going on, I had all of these enemies come to like the right side of this castle because that's where they thought all our people were, and then I had the other 2 like stealth around the back, and there was like one mage that was right on top of the castle, and she was like pinging my people. I couldn't get up there to get her, so I had the rogue go up and just stab her in the back, like, but it wasn't in the turns. He was just like freely doing it, and then went up and just shanked her in the back. It was like, it's crazy. I've never played anything like this.
That's why these games work so well as co-op as well. I've played
wow.
So Divinity Original Sin 2, I've played a little bit of co-op. I have like 2 failed campaigns with my friends where we got like 10 hours in and it just fell apart. Anyone who's ever tried to maintain a long-term co-op any sort of game understands how hard it is. But yeah, it's just a blast. Like, these games work so if you, even in single player in Baldur's Gate 3, when you initiate conversation or like interact with a terminal or something like that, you'll see in the bottom it says your name has initiated a conversation. And the way it worked in Divinity Original Sin 2 is then if someone initiates a conversation, I can go over and interact with that same person or object or whatever, and it'll cut me into their cutscene so I can see what they're doing and interact. These games are just they're so seamlessly hinged between co-op and single player experience. Like I feel like either one kind of feels like the definitive way to play it. You know what I mean?
The
Divinity Original Sin.
Here's the other thing: is this an immersive sim?
That's such a good question.
You know what I mean? Because like the amount of like options that are not explicitly said to you, that you can do is crazy. Like I am like, every time I'm stopping the game, I'm just looking at everything in the world and going, what's the trick here? Like I've heard about people like possessing cats and like getting everyone to look at the cat. So like all the baddies to look at the cat, or like get them to chase the cat so that they can like isolate someone to fuck them up. Like all of these like animal possession and like all of these like tricks you can do, the jumping where you can like cross, you know, areas, and like all the spells you can cast on people to change them in some way or influence them in some way. Like I feel like there is going to be like videos of pro D&D people who are just like doing the craziest shit with this game, because the game seems to let you want to like just like I don't understand how I haven't run into like 1,000 bugs, because like the thing just seems so crazy systematic and complex, and also freeform. Like most systematic and complex games feel like that grid. You can feel the chessboard right there. It feels that, whereas this game feels so organic and free, but then also it runs well and it doesn't seem to break all the time. So I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it does kind of just feel like the closest, because I've never played D&D because I've just never had a group to play it with. I've never been invited to play D&D with anyone because I would accept in a heartbeat. But I feel like these games are kind of, that's what appeals to me about them, is it's almost like I can play D&D by myself, and the GM is just like, or the DM or whatever you call it, is in the game, is like written into 150 hours of story or whatever.
Right.
But along the way, it's just like, oh, you want to be like a goofy weirdo? Oh, you want to be like a stealth, like, you know, Machiavellian monster? And the game just like facilitates whatever you want to do. It's unbelievable. Yeah, it is funny to think it's like an immersive sim. Just because I don't usually associate that with this perspective. But then Weird West was very immersive simmy, and that was top down. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it has like, there's so much like, you know, things you can do in the world that have knock-on effects, like physicsy based things, you know, where it's like putting grease on the floor, or, you know, fire and all this sort of stuff. Like there's so much, and especially then with the characters, because like I have a character who's impervious to fire damage, and then I also have somebody else who does magic missiles. So like I'm able to like set up situations where she can like make a little explosion of stuff happen around me, and then I'm just like chilling.
Yeah,
I mean? Like,
and in Divinity Original Sin 2, I had an undead character, and then I had another character who specialized in poison, and poison heals undead and hurts the living. And so I would I would send in my undead rogue, and he would backstab, and then I would just nuke the battlefield with poison, and it would just be healing him while he was like decimating everyone.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the builds you can do with, I mean, the immersive sim stuff, just in terms of interaction in the world, is cool. But for me, I think the way that the battle system is like immersive simmy and systems driven, and just so open to different play styles and stuff, it makes you, it feels like a puzzle game without that genre box around it, where it's just like the puzzle is just figuring out your play style and figuring out new tips and tricks and little like things you can tell yourself and be like, oh, next time I'm gonna like, oh, the healing hurts undead. There's a bunch of skeletons around. I'm gonna bring my healer out and just have him like AoE heal everyone.
Yeah, and I don't feel like I'm rushing through or anything. I feel like I'm enjoying spending that time. Yeah, it's really special. Like I've only played for, I only started yesterday at some stage, or maybe the day before, and I absolutely Love it. I feel like the summer for me has been a lot of trying a lot of games. I'm not sticking to any one of them. You know, I've had Jagged Alliance was one that I've dropped back into a bunch. Pillars of Eternity 2. But and then obviously like I played other ones like Planescape, but I bounced off that pretty quick. Like just like dabbling, and now I feel like this is the one I'm going to play for like 3 months. Like this feels like that game.
Same.
It's fucking really good. I would, and it's I do want to like I can't overemphasize. I don't want to speak about like my personal experience, yada yada, like it's that important or anything. But I do want to overemphasize the fact that this is not a game that I had any interest in previews. I do not know this genre very well. I don't know D&D very well, either from a playing it or the lore side of things. Like I think I mentioned that Dungeons and Dragons movie I really enjoyed, even though I didn't know really. You know, I know what a cantrip is, so maybe I know more than like, you know, bloke on the street about this stuff just by osmosis because of video games. But I was not like excited to play this game necessarily, and I love it. So I think like if people are on the fence, like it's worth a dabble.
Yeah, I think it's I think if you play this game, I think it would be very, very difficult if you get past the character creator screen. If you crack a beer and you sit there for an hour and you read all the spells and you get past that, I think it is like. I just think it'd be impossible to not be charmed by this game. I just think it's incredibly well written. Even if you don't like fantasy, even if you don't like CRPGs, I just think that this is kind of an undeniable force of narrative, like of storytelling, of systems, of like gameplay. And just like it's firing on all cylinders. I just think if you like video games, you would like this game.
Yeah, it feels like a Mass Effect 2 or something where even people who won't play these games are like, oh yeah, I gotta check this out. Frank, have we convinced you to play Baldur's Gate 3?
Yeah, my thing is I'm waiting for the console release because like I spend so much time on the computer that like if I'm gonna play a massive RPG, I think I want to sit back and I've been honestly laying in my bed and playing like Lost Judgment, which is a very like dialogue cutscene heavy game, but I've enjoyed just sitting back instead of lurched over my computer. So I'll wait for the PS5 because I also have a few friends who are obsessed with trophies and also want to co-op it. So I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a good game.
Good shout. September 6th is when it comes out on PlayStation 5 and also Mac, which actually, considering I have a Mac laptop that I use for editing, that might, although this game is probably going to take up most of I think it's 135 gigs, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
It's a big download. And then Xbox Series X and S is TBA. So, yeah.
One of my questions, so it seems like this game is extremely beefy. Does this even run on Steam Deck, or have people tried it?
I've tried.
I can't imagine.
I've tried it. It's they released a patch since I did it, but I don't know if that necessarily did anything to do with the performance. Okay, so it definitely sounds like a helicopter taking off.
Oh my God.
And this was in the character creator. Like I didn't go further than the character creator on this thing before I went, I need to download this on my PC. And I have had, I think Brian Altano or a couple of other people in the industry, I've had the exact same thing. It might have been Dave O'Shea as well at New Blood. I think maybe he said it where, he had the same thing as me where it was, he opened it on Steam Deck and then spent 10 minutes in there and went, nope, I gotta. And the main reason for me, I think it actually might run okay, but the main reason for me is that the game is so lush and beautiful that like, I actually didn't want to play it on a screen. Like it felt like it was like, you know, when it feels like textures are being like crunched a bit too much and they're kind of like, you're not getting that detail. I've never had that on the Steam Deck in my life. Like most games look incredible on that thing. But yeah, I think technically it might, but it's kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what other type of game, but it's so lush and beautiful. Like I'm playing on my edit machine mostly in the studio because it's got the best graphics card. My PC at home is not great. It's like pretty old. It's like maybe 5 years old at this stage. And I have the widescreen monitor that one of our patrons actually sent to the studio last year when we got this place. So I'm playing on a widescreen monitor on that thing, and it's just like fucking, yep, this is it. This is the way Christopher Nolan wanted me to play this video game. Yeah, the Steam stats have been crazy too. It's got, I think its peak players was 665,000.
Wow.
For a 24-hour peak. It's in like the top 10, maybe top 6 or something of highest concurrent players on Steam.
Wow.
Which is really crazy. I mean, it has 117,000 reviews on Steam in less than a week.
Wow.
It's in very positive these. And so I guess it's not less than a week because this game was in early access for a while, so there's that. But it's had recent reviews, so that's the past 30 days, is 60,000 and overwhelmingly positive. So, yeah, this thing's a fucking force of nature.
I mean, the last thing I'll say about Baldur's Gate 3 is that I think I feel like Larian is so committed to this vision of. I talk a lot about old games in a way where I'm like waxing philosophically about like your granddad about how games were different back in the day. But I really do feel like Larian is kind of this bastion of holding on to an older era of PC game design that I personally grew up playing, and they're the games that I felt were, you know, like magical worlds for me to interact with, games that got me interested in crafting narratives and learning about game design and all of these things. Yeah, again, I'm not trying to like shit on Diablo 4, but it is hard not to compare two big CRPGs that came out pretty close together. And playing Baldur's Gate 3 and knowing that this is a studio who is committed to not having any microtransactions. I think the only thing you can buy is if you get the deluxe edition, I think you get like a cape or I can't remember what it is.
Yeah.
But there's no like store in the game where you can buy little trinkets and stuff. And to me, I know a lot of people are not bothered by that stuff, but to me it is such a atmospheric hit that it's like playing Baldur's Gate 3 is like other games where they're trying to sell me something. I feel like I'm at the bar and someone's coming up to me and they're like, "Hey, I bet you look pretty good naked." And I'm like, "Leave me alone, dude. Like I don't want this. Like I know I can say no, but I don't want you coming up to me." And Baldur's Gate 3 is just, it's like the bar where everyone's looking at, they're just like, just enjoy yourself. Like just have an experience. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm not trying to like make a bad faith comparison to Diablo 4. It feels so substantially different to me as a tone of experience, even outside of the diegesis of the world, outside of the story, outside of the systems. It just feels like they wanted to make an unbelievable PC game, package it, put it in your hands, and then be like, all right, you gave us your money, just like have your experience, and everything is in world. If you find a cape, it's in the game. If you find a helmet, you found it like on someone's dead corpse, and I don't know. It feels substantially different to me. I know a lot of people are not bothered by that stuff, but it really detracts from my experience when there's microtransaction stuff around a game that otherwise I'm supposed to be. I'm the hero of time, but I need like $3 to get these shoes.
Yeah, the games of as a service occasion of a lot of these genres is questionable. Like in some stuff, it feels like it works. Like purely multiplayer games, I feel like PUBG and that type of thing, Fortnite, absolutely go for it. Completely makes sense. Like those games, even in the past, were all about, if it wasn't the studio doing it, you know, releasing Quake map packs on CDs, it was communities making levels for Counter-Strike or Unreal Tournament. You know what I mean? Like that's part of the vibe, and people like that. But yeah, other games like, you know, BioWare, it's hard to talk about this without thinking about some BioWare stuff with regard to either the quality of the single player experience or what you're talking about with games as a service's finger sort of getting in there and messing things up a little bit. The other thing I think is really impressive about Larian, and this is again coming out of a place of ignorance, is that like when I'm playing this game, I don't feel like this is an old type of game. I don't feel like this is a throwback to a genre that has all this fandom behind it. Baldur's Gate 3 feels more modern than just about any game I have played in the last 4 years. Like I cannot think of a game that felt like the future.
Yeah.
In a long time.
In the same way that Apex Legends feels very similar to older FPS games that I would play, but the modernization of the traversal, of the like taking Battle Royale and doing interesting things with it and refining that. Like I think I'm hesitant to say that any genre is like an old school genre. I'm more keen on the idea that genres are like, you know, like movie genres. Like you can make a neo noir, you can make a neo western, and I think that I think that's a more healthy perspective on sort of genres in game development. Is that that the genres are like a template, and working from there you can move forward and modernize and upgrade and keep quality of life moving forward. And so I feel like this feels like an old game to people who played these games back in the day, but I think someone who has no experience with a CRPG would fire this up and be like, oh, this is a 2023 ass video game.
Right. Apparently, according to Wikipedia as well, it was made by a team of about 450 people, which, considering the game that I've been playing, feels like pretty good money, I think.
Yeah.
450 people who know what the fuck they're doing, based all around the world as well. I believe they've, obviously they're based in Ghent in Belgium. They have a fairly sizable studio in Dublin, Ireland, I know. I think they've one in Guildford and Kuala Lumpur and Barcelona, I think. So that they're kind of, you know, fairly spread out. But I think I think I'm very pleased for these people. They seem to really give a shit about this particular genre. And obviously their first licensed game, they wanted to knock it out of the park. And yeah, it sounds like they knocked it out of the park. This thing's brilliant.
Amen.
Baldur's Gate 3. Play it now. Available now. Also, if you have a Larian account, if you are the type of sicko who likes to buy games on multiple consoles, apparently there is cross-save available. I'm not sure if that's between PC and I don't know, because right now it's only on PC, but they said that I think it's your most recent 5 saves will be available. I could be wrong. Maybe that's 2 PCs. I don't know, actually, if that is cross console and PC or whatever. So I retract that statement. Do your own research. Baldur's Gate 3, super game. Check it out. Let's talk about a game that is almost as relevant as Baldur's Gate 3. Frank Howley, you've been playing Grand Theft Auto 4 Lost and Damned.
Yes, my saga to get all the long lost achievements that have missed my youth.
Nice.
I've been going down all my Xbox games, Xbox 360 games, looking at like what are games I like just didn't make time for back then. The way I landed on Grand Theft Auto 4, the episodes of Liberty City, is interesting. Weeks ago, like rumors came out like, oh, someone found a Red Dead Redemption graphic on Rockstar's website. Like someone found like a PNG deeply embedded. They posted that on like Reset Era or something, and then for weeks it was rumors like, is there a remaster of Red Dead Redemption coming out? What's going on? And now we know there's just like a new port coming to PS4 and PC. But in those 2 weeks, I was like, oh, a remaster of Red Dead Redemption. I can't wait to play that. And then I started getting hungry for Red Dead Redemption, and I was like, well, maybe I replay Red Dead Redemption 2. That's like an 80-hour game. I don't know. And then I was like, wait a minute. I never played the episodes of Liberty City.
Oh, you never played
I never
them?
touched them. What happened was when Grand Theft Auto 4 came out, I was in high school. I loved like the GTA 3 trilogy, like San Andreas, Vice City. And then I loved like Saints Row. That was like arcadey, goofy. When GTA 4 came out, it felt like such a simulation and such a jarring like shift in Rockstar's design that was like, oh, this isn't fun. I still played it, I liked it, but like driving cars felt stiff. Like you had to eat all the time to reclaim your health. Like cheats disabled achievements. It was like, I don't like.
Go bowling with your brother.
It was like too much for me. Like back then, so
dating Irish girls and getting them drunk in the Irish bar. Yeah, it was great.
So like at the time, I bounced off GTA 4. I just didn't really enjoy it as much. I eventually went back and beat it, yada yada. GTA 5 I liked, but like so when Lost and Damned came out and Gay Tony, I just ignored it. So I'm hungry to play a Rockstar game. I still might play Red Dead Redemption when the remaster comes out. So either way, this
port,
the port, not a remaster, the port. But anyways, Lost and Damned and Gay Tony were like 50% off on some Xbox DLC sale. So for $5, I was able to scoop. Finally, I held out long enough for the price to be right, and I got Grand Theft Auto 4, Lost and Damned. And I beat it in like a week. I think it's like an 8-hour game, which is amazing, better than 80 hours for Red Dead Redemption 2. And so it's brand new to me, but I loved it. There's also a really cute like symmetry of like I've been riding my bicycle so much, and this is a game where you are leading a group of bikers. And there is also a parallel of the story of Red Dead Redemption 2. Both games are about like outlaws, like kind of a dying breed. Your gang leader is kind of losing it and going crazy, and you kind of want to get out. And playing GTA 4 so many years later, it feels like a new game because like it'd been so long since I've been in that New York Liberty City that like I could appreciate everything more. That map compared to GTA 5 is so much smaller, so it's not as cumbersome to get to like your next mission, whereas GTA 5 it seemed like a nightmare to all of a sudden traverse like an hour to the north of the map, whatever.
And the whole map is open from the start in both of these DLCs, right?
Yes,
as well.
Yeah, I feel like in the original you were always gated by mission progress.
You were, the bridge was closed because of a terrorist something or other.
Yeah.
And the start of 4 and the start of 3 as well. Yeah. The start of 3, it's because of the inciting incident of 3, which is the bomb that goes off, or
I'm pretty sure they closed it down because Baldur's Gate 2 came out.
That's what it was, yeah.
Yeah, there was terrorist-related activity around that.
And so, like, I know it's such a random thing to bring to the show, but it's like, I played the game, I liked it, like, the shooting and everything, this sounds so funny, weird to review like a 15-year-old game, but, like, I really liked playing it, the shooting, everything felt satisfying. I think what it was is, like, having played through Red Dead Redemption 2 over quarantine, I finally appreciate what Rockstar was going for. Like, I felt like they were always, like, a decade ahead, like, with what they were making. So finally playing Lost in Dan was like, oh, I really like this. This is great. And now I started playing Gay Tony.
Oh, Gay Tony's great.
Which, like,
Gay Tony's a good time.
Immediately, the missions are so bombastic and, like, every mission's big. Also, the UI is...
It's more your vibe, I feel like Gay Tony
It's funny.
is,
I feel like if GTA 4 was Gay Tony, I would have loved it because it is Vice City. It is... Everything has the euphoria lighting. Everything is, like, very jokey. It's very... It's like... I feel like Gay Tony is what... the GTA 3 trilogy, like that tone of humor, like everyone's openly doing coke, and there's so many like dumb jokes, and I don't know, but so it's fun being back in that world and playing it, and it runs incredible on Series X. I think it's like 60 frames per second, instant loading. So I think, I don't know.
Fucking hope so.
Yeah, now's the time. If you haven't played it, now's the time.
While you're waiting for Baldur's Gate 3 to come out on Xbox, you can go check out the Ballad of Gay Tony. That's awesome. Sorry, Jeremy, were you going to say something there?
No.
You have Gay Tony on your lips?
No.
So to speak.
I've never played those games, although Gay Tony is a good friend of mine.
Did you ever play 4?
I played 4. 4 was kind of the last GTA game that I really enjoyed. I played 5, and I was kind of not that into it. I think I bought it when I got the job at GameSpot, maybe.
Right.
When did 5 come out? 2013?
It was right before I moved to America.
2013,
okay. It was 10 years ago this year. Yeah, 2013, yeah.
Before I worked at GameSpot, I kind of took a few years off of playing games as heavily as I had in my youth, and spent a lot of time just like, going around and taking LSD with my college friends. And then I got the job at GameSpot, and I was like, oh, I need to modernize. And so I played Assassin's Creed Black Flag and GTA, and my PS3 died in the middle of GTA 5.
Wow, that's how powerful that video game is.
Yeah. And I was like, there's no way in hell you're going to... Because those missions are fun the first time you do them, and then when you replay them, you're like, oh, I'm just hearing the exact... I'm just driving for 25 minutes and listening to the same lines of dialogue. And it's like, there's no way I'll ever
Those
beat
are
this
games that I find hard to replay. I adore them. Like GTA 5, I absolutely adore it. It'll be 10 years old on September 17th this year.
Okay, yeah, so that lines up.
And I adored it. And it was when I was moving to California. So it was very... I played it... I remember I did a 24-hour live stream on GameSpot UK because we went out and bought it, and it was before it was out in America, right? Because we were in Europe. So we were like at a 6-hour jump on everyone. And I went down to Oxford Circus and bought it at the HMV there for, whatever, and then took the 2 back to the GameSpot offices and then played for 12 hours or 6 hours or something. I think our live stream's all gone now. I just remember like listening to Tangerine Dream on the loading screen when it was like installing the game, thinking this is the fucking best music ever. Like, what is going on? And then I got into Tangerine Dream. But I loved it because it was like I'm moving to America, so it felt like this like beautiful like welcome to America. To talk about video games as well. Like my visa stuff was just done, and I was just waiting to go, and like all those creamy like red forever sunsets that you get in that game in California, it was just like fucking heaven. I love that game. That's like got a special place in my heart.
It also is like a reasonably, like obviously it's cartoonish, but I feel like it gives you the flavor of what America is kind of like. Like if you'd never been to America and you played GTA 5, you would have a very exaggerated version of American culture, but you wouldn't be that far away from what it actually feels like to be inside of it. Especially, I don't know. I feel like the world has become more GTA-ified in the in the intervening years.
I've always thought that the reason why, I don't know if the reason why it works for everyone, but I think the reason why it works for people who, and I guess I'm an American now, but people who grow up outside of America or who aren't American or whatever, is that because these games are made by non-Americans mostly, like obviously a lot of the tech is made in San Diego and stuff, but a lot of the design is happening in Scotland. And because of that, I think a lot of the things that shine out as American to non-Americans that mightn't resonate that much, they get like pulpified. They get like... extended. Like I always talk about yellow school buses as something that like a lot of Americans don't realize is hyper American because they do not exist outside of America. You don't have yellow school buses. So there's stuff like that. There's like things like that, like the type of the color of the sunsets or the way like street lights are or stuff like, you know what I mean? It's all these like tiny road markings and things like that just feel so. And like even like I was flying into LA a couple of weeks ago and like going by, what is it? Ventura County, is it? Up on the northwest up there where you're going down by the beach there as well. And it's just that whole thing just looks exactly like it does in 5 and 3. And
It also is fun to just, as someone who was born and raised in America, it is fun to have, like, when you're living in the Imperial core, the heart of the Imperial core, it's fun to have someone hold up the, like, funhouse mirror to you and be like, this is what you look like.
Right.
And you're like, yeah, that is us. You got us. You know what I mean? Like, it's fun to be poked fun at in that way or something, to have your culture turned into a caricature. Like, when you go down to the boardwalk and they draw you with, like, a huge nose, and you're like, you got me.
Yeah, you got me.
Yeah.
You got me. I mean, like, yeah, just make sure that guy's not like an anti-Semite or something. Like that,
yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, make sure that there's not an ill intention under the drawing.
Right. Well, I think that's all the games. I have a couple just quickly to mention. Get through them all. I played a bunch of Pseudo Regalia. I'm really enjoying it.
Oh, nice.
Great recommendation. I also played a bunch of Halls of Torment, which is Frank's recommendation. I have been loving that on Steam. I like how the character progression is spread across the three classes or the multiple classes. I've only got 3 so far. I'm not sure if there's more than 3. Is there more than 3?
Yeah, I think right now I have 4 unlocked. I don't know how many there are, but everyone has a different play style, which is pretty cool.
It's fun. And it's like you can let it be auto fire or you can do it yourself. And like you kind of, at certain stages, you really got to, or with certain types of characters, you kind of want to do it yourself. But it's cool. It's like super intimidating and rad. And I love the vibe of that game. And then I played a shitload of Quake. I finished John Romero's book. It's really, really good. I enjoyed the end of it. I was really sad when it was over. I felt like I was having story time with John Romero every day, and then he was gone from my life. So I really enjoyed it. And then for the last like 3 chapters of the book, I just played Quake. I completed the first 2 Slipgates in Quake. I hadn't played Quake in a long time, and they brought it. I played that version that Bethesda released last year, I think it was, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of quality of life. I mean, it basically plays the exact same as Quake. But yeah, it just runs on widescreen monitors and does all that sort of stuff. So yeah. Quake. It's a good video game. Go play Quake.
The good news was like it leaked on like the Korean ESRB equivalent. Like there's going to be a Quake 2 remaster or something. So
really?
Yeah. So it's yeah.
Best grenades in the business, man. Fucking crunchy. Fucking twist them, throw them. They got the little tick, 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 boom. Great. Sick grenades. Those are the games, but we also have some emails to get through here. podcast@noclip.video if you want to send in your emails, or if you want to put them in the podcast chat over on Discord. Also, if you have any questions, you want to stick them in the YouTube comments, stick them there. We give them a quick scan as well. I've got a meeting in like 13 minutes, so I guess we'll get through these ones as quickly as we can. Sorry, we had a bit of a pre-meeting before this about some exciting projects that we can't talk about publicly, so bled into our time a little bit. Frank, you got this first one from Ollie Kant in the Discord?
Yeah, this is Ollie's question. This is related to role-playing in games and the differing approaches. When you create a character in a game, do you make an exact replica of yourself, maybe an idealized self, or try to make an original character that fits within the environment and is removed from who you are IRL? I've always leaned towards the second option. I liked making an original character that made sense within the world with a name that fits thematically and give them a backstory. That made sense to me. Like, I know who I am, and I'm someone who couldn't fight a dragon. I'd shit myself. Whatever way you approach character creation, I think can say a lot about you, what you want from playing a role-playing game.
That's a really good question. I typically kind of land in between the two. I kind of like to make a character who is in world, like their backstory is diegetic to the world, but the way I play them is often as kind of an outsider to that world. Like, I like to be a trickster, especially in things like Baldur's Gate where they let you do bizarre stuff. I like to just go around making mischief and being like a tricksy little guy or something.
Nice. Similarly, I try and find one who's like a bit of an outsider, and then I try and give them a good outsider vibe. Like I had when we did D&D during the pandemic with a bunch of ex sort of like Giant Bomb Whiskey media people. We had one going every week. I had this weird guy. He was like his name was Shepard, and it was a robot that was part of like this robot war that happened, because I forget what campaign we were playing. But he was a bard, and he would basically play a discordant shepherd tone that would debuff the enemy. So like a shepherd tone that like feels like it's constantly rising or going down or lowering or whatever. It's you can Google shepherd tone. You can have infinite. It's an infinite sound that feels like it's constantly going up, but it's shifting octave or something. I'm not sure how it does it. So he would play this like fucked up shepherd tone that always felt like it was going down and bum out the other people. But then his war was over, and he would like use this. So like it was like a way to like create like a character that felt like it was like the way I kind of saw myself. Like whenever I played soccer, I was a goalkeeper. Like I read a book about the mentality of goalkeepers and people who like, there are people who are like outsiders and there are people who want to be outsiders, and it's kind of more what I am maybe. Like I feel like I'm always wanting to be by myself and somewhat outside. I mean, probably everyone does in some respect. So I always create characters like that are like a bit like a halfling. Makes sense to me because they're probably not liked by a lot of different, you know, they don't have a home maybe that way, you know. Or my character's a ranger, which is generally a sort of a solo type person, you know, so that type of thing. I never play games like cooperatively that way, and even in a party, like I like the lone wolf thing a lot more. I like Project IGI, you know, just like a solo thing. I like your one man band kind of thing. So yeah, that's kind of how I do it. Frank, what about you?
For me, it's just whatever I'm hyper obsessed with at the time. So this has been the summer of Paramore. So like the last 3 created characters have been Hayley Williams. The beginning of this year when I watched all of Euphoria, I had like Sydney Sweeney characters. A decade ago when I watched Mad Men, I made a Tony Hawk 4 career with Don Draper. So it's just, but I like it because then when I load up my save, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember when I watched Mad Men or whatever. And it's like, I don't know. It's I'm trying to even think of like Dark Souls characters at the time. Like it's just whatever. What's the flavor of the week or the month is that. So
that's cool.
It's a nice mark.
There was something I'd done in recent years, and I didn't do a Baldur's Gate because it's fairly sexualized, the game is, and it felt incredibly not appropriate. But I did it with games like what did I replay recently? I think maybe Fallout 4 I played a couple of years ago. Definitely with Elden Ring as well, is I'll make my daughter, like I'll do the character kind of looks like her and like name it her, and you know, and then like make choices like I might, and it's like, I don't know, it's like when my experience of having a child, and she's now 5, is like that you're always looking back because you know what that is. Like I only have one child, right? So I have no idea how to like parent an 8-year-old. I don't know what 8-year-olds are like yet. So it gave me a window to think about what she might be like in the future, which was quite pleasant. And yeah, so I've done that a couple of times too, which is quite fun. I'd be interested to hear if other parents do that. Is that like a thing, or like someone in your family, like your dad or older brother or something like that?
That's very cute. That's like a good. Yeah. It's a good shortcut to making you care about that character too. You're like, I cannot let this character die. They must survive.
And it also like shows you. It exposes either the things that you already admire about your child that are particular to them. Because that's the thing I think was, as not a single parent, as a parent of one child, not multiple ones, is that I don't. It's only when you're hanging out with other parents do you realize the ways in which your child is sort of like who they are. Like you have that comparison. So I think it does that. And it also gives you a little bit of an insight into your biases as a parent, like the ways in which you might want them to be, which is sort of like something you need to keep in check so that you're not like subconsciously or consciously trying to force them to be a certain type of person, you know? So it's kind of like a fun little exercise that way. And then also in Elden Ring, you're just like fucking killing people and shit, and that's cool. So you can be like, maybe my daughter grows up to be a fucking weird demon hunter. I don't know.
Yeah, my parents were always pushing me to spec into Dex when I was a kid, and I was like, I just want to learn magic, guys. Why can't you accept me for how I am?
I want to be a wizard, goddammit!
I don't want to be a rogue.
Jeremy, I think you're up for this one from Jerry Corcoran.
We got Jerry Corcoran, not Johnny Cochran, but it's very similar sounding. Hey guys, heard Danny talking about Antstream Arcade and his issues with it, and I thought I'd just drop in with some thoughts as well. Antstream was originally run on Kickstarter. They later took a bunch of 10-cent money, which annoyed me, and as a huge retro gamer and recovering collector, I decided to back it at a tier that got me lifetime access. Ooh. At the time, it was only offered as a Kickstarter reward, and it was €250. Needless to say, the price has dropped a bit, which also kind of annoys me.
Oh, yeah.
That is annoying. But I get why. I live in Ontario, Canada, and my experience with the service has been similar to Danny. They didn't launch from the Canadian servers, which they didn't tell backers, and it was super laggy, frequently artifacted, and a lot of the times games would fail to launch. They've since added a Canadian server, and while it's better, it's still not Sorry, just scroll down. It's still not acceptable in my opinion. There's still too much input delay, and their encoding engine doesn't handle fast motion well. I've tried to raise this with them in the past, and they've generally tried to blame my connection. That I have a 3 gigabit fiber apparently doesn't matter.
Beautiful Canadian internet.
Yeah, wow. Truth be told, I have a massive ROM collection, so I don't know why I even needed to back a streaming service in the first place. I think I had big ideas about being able to play stuff on the go from my phone, but using it over a cell network is just a no-go. They do have tournaments and leaderboards, but given their clearly small player population, they're rarely very interesting. This relaunch on Xbox with the substantially lower pricing feels kind of like a last gasp for the service, as it never really took off, and I don't think it ever had a large player base. I could be wrong, but I do wonder if this was just too small a niche to be sustainable, especially considering the service mostly has games that only appeal to enthusiast retro players who know how emulators work. Anyway, just wanted to throw those in. Cheers.
Yeah, I think Jerry sums it up pretty well there, and the fact that he has a very similar experience to me is, somewhat damning maybe.
Yeah.
I have used it since in the week since we talked about it mostly, and it's been the same. I think the lag is definitely annoying, but the visual stuff, like the weird encoding, like chunks you get, games like Sensible Soccer just don't work because every pixel is moving all the time when the camera's moving. A lot of Amiga games aren't like that. Like Battle Chess was completely fine because there was no lag, didn't matter, and input wise only one object moves at a time in that game. So yeah, I'm thinking maybe my lifetime subscription's not going to be my lifetime, maybe the lifetime of the service. I guess we'll wait and find out. But thanks, Jerry. And for what it's worth, I live in the Bay Area, and the connection is still not great, and I also have super fast internet. So yeah, I don't think it's that. Yeah, it's weird. It also probably costs them a lot of money to stream all this video when the games are like 2 megabytes. So I don't know if it's the best business model. It's like having DoorDash, but they deliver each ingredient separately. You know what I mean?
So like Blue Ribbon or Blue Apron, whatever it's called.
Blue Apron, yeah.
Yeah.
Except that it's a different dasher for every tomato and piece.
They got
of
a tomato guy, they got a potato guy.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, that's a bit of a shame. Thanks for those emails, folks. Podcast@noclip.video if you want to send in any more. Frank's been going through those as well as on Discord and in the YouTube comments. So if you have any questions, stick them in. Our survey is almost over. Thank you to the 4,500 people who have responded so far to the Noclip survey. You can do that over at surveymonkey.com/r/noclip. That's surveymonkey.com/or for robot, because I say or instead of ah. How do you say ah? How do you say R? Guys?
R. Like a pirate. Like a pirate. Yeah.
Somebody should do a documentary on Monkey Island. /noclip. The tapes, some good stuff hitting the archive recently. I've almost gone through all of the press releases. The press kits that I found. We have a lot of sick trailers up there for Dead to Rights 2, Tekken 5, Biden Kados, Xenosaga 2, all these classics you've not heard about in forever. Tales of Symphonia, a game called Project Delta, which got cancelled, a Dead Rush, which was a cancelled Treyarch game before they were working on Call of Duty games nonstop, which was like a driving game. We also have a trailer for SRS Street Racing Syndicate, which has a great segment where you can, quote unquote, get women, because that's what 2004 driving games were like. Ace Combat 5 and a bunch of others. Today I rendered out a great recording of a Game Spotting, episode 21, hosted by Rich Gallup. That'll be going up soon. And I also got an interview with Kaz Hirai from before the launch of the PlayStation 3. They'll be going up in the next couple of days, along with the rest of the trailers from that press kit dump that I found. And then the press kits themselves are going up on archive, so if you want, you can literally open them and play around with the flash files and the menus and see the screenshots for all these weird games. It's very funny. In production, we have a lot going on. Dwarf Fortress is still getting worked on. Our 2 secret projects have been kept us very busy. Jeremy was filming down here in the studio yesterday. We had a very famous game developer in the Noclip studio for a fun conversation. I also flew to Seattle to film some interviews on Monday, so there's loads going on. We'll be able to tell you about those documentaries hopefully in the next couple of weeks. I am also flying to Europe the week after next. I will not be here next week because I'm going to on vacation next week with my family, but the week after that I'm flying to Europe and I'll be there for about a week. Recording another secret documentary, which you'll hear about soon enough. The Burger King stuff's come together really well. Frank did an awesome job on the segment down in SoCal. It was terrific. We all had a great laugh watching that. And loads of other little bits and bobs going on. Loads of very exciting projects we're working on. Hopefully we'll be able to tell you about them pretty soon. And then last thing to mention, Saturday, September 2nd at 2:30 Pacific in the Monarch Theatre. We'll be at PAX West. PAX West Saturday, September 2nd, 2:30 in the Monarch Theatre, just after lunchtime. Come, say hey. We're just rounding off the final details on that panel. We will be most likely showing footage from the 2 secret documentaries that we can't tell you about. I had that thing, and probably have some guests and other stuff as well. So if you listen to the podcast, you like Noclip stuff, come hang out. We will be there. If you'd like to support our podcast, get access to early documentaries and loads more, head over to patreon.com/Noclip. Gentlemen, I have to go right now because we came right up to the end of the thing. Frank, how are you doing for the rest of your week?
Friday night, GCW LA Deathmatch Wrestling. It's the best. Alley Catch,
Beautiful.
Maki Ito. I'm excited.
Great idea. Jeremy Jane, you're up in Mendocino.
I'm going to the beach, baby. I'm going right now.
Damn, enjoy the beach. Enjoy
I will.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm going to play some Baldur's Gate 3 probably. And, maybe edit some documentaries. I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't know. We'll see. Thank you all so much. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time around. Peace. Bye.